Hey, peace and blessings to you. My name is Jerry D. I am the EntreMusician, and so are you. Welcome to another exciting episode of the EntreMusician. This is the space where we concentrate on the mindset, discipline, and focus of the EntreMusician. And today, absolutely no exception, because today we embark on a brand new series entitled Raising Your Voice. And just because we can, we're going to work backwards, because instead of beginning at the beginning of this series, we're going to begin with the end in mind and start off by providing you with 7 ways to raise your voice up front. Now, in an upcoming episode, we will discuss the uniqueness of your voice, and finally, we will unpack the underlying why, the power of your voice. And by your voice, we do not mean your singing voice or your musical voice or the original sound of your instrument, like your unique custom setting. You know, as important as those things are, no, what we mean is your inner spiritual voice expressed outwardly throughout your life and throughout your career. That's what we're talking about. But please remember this, and I may repeat this often, but as this year unfolds, our focus is to increase your awareness that the EntreMusician is more about who you are. That's more important than what you do. So this series, like our previous series, are going to dig into that a little bit more too. And you may have noticed that we have had some great interviews and some conversations with EntreMusicians, and we've asked them in those dialogues to explain how they're using their inner voice in extraordinary ways. And we've had some great answers, so look forward to more episodes and interviews like that from EntreMusicians, and we'll sprinkle them in with these series. But today, I'm going to share with you 7 ways that you can raise your own voice, strong, soulful, and steadfast. I'm going to give them to you now, and then we'll just unpack them shortly, okay? Here they are. Number 1, know yourself. Number 2, know your business. Number 3, overcome fear. Number 4, understand failure. Number 5, learn to pivot. Number 6, expand your perseverance. And number 7, speak clearly before you speak loudly. But before we take them apart, and we will, let's just do a couple of things first. The first thing that I want to say, and I mean this from my heart, is just to thank all of those of you who are partnering with the EntreMusician to help us produce these videos, our podcast, and other valuable resources, which do allow us to provide a true network for EntreMusicians. Thank you very much. There is real dialogue and collaboration going on and increasing, and we absolutely love it. We appreciate those of you who make this possible, and we do want to invite more of you to join us. And you can do this first by just telling everybody you know that you hang out with the EntreMusician, and you can tell 12 people you don't know why they should be hanging out with us as well. And for those of you who do desire a deeper degree of engagement, you can just go to our website at theentremusician.com. You can click on the Backstage Pass, register there, and take a look at the various ways to just get even more content from us, get it first, get access to other things that we are doing, and it'll be one big party back there. So thank you again for those of you who partner with us, and thank you in advance to those who are coming on. The second thing I want to do here is just give a huge shout out to our wonderful VIZD family. Yo, y'all, I see y'all out there. If you have a Roku TV or device, or you just have your phone, you can download the VIZD app. Check out everything that's going on. Great shows on VIZD, and we're happy to be a part of the family. And also, by God's grace, we were blessed on February 8th, which happens to be my birthday, to debut on the Armstrong Neighborhood channel. That's channel 100. If you're an Armstrong cable subscriber, please check out the EntreMusician. You may have stumbled upon it, but we want to give a great shout out to my man, Greg Roton, the program director, for making this happen, and we really appreciate it. The platform is expanding. But let's take care of one more thing before we get on topic, and that is to look at what's cooking on the front burner. Now, the issue at play that I find curious revolves around an article I read in Rolling Stone a couple weeks back. There was this young artist who went viral on TikTok from his original song, but he had licensed a beat to flow underneath it, and subsequently, the song just gathered a lot of attention. He was approached by a record exec who wanted to work with him, but the young artist refused for whatever reason. But the record exec went to the producer of that beat, he purchased it outright, and then he sued the artist for copyright infringement. Can you dig that? I mean, it turns out that this particular record executive has done this a few times in the past and has utilized this as a slick business model to increase his profits. I mean, he sued a few rappers in the past, and he's admitted openly that he is taking advantage of the vulnerability of these rappers and artists who don't understand the intricacies of copyright. I mean, the hubris, right? Now, I'm not going to get into the neighborhood of ethics here, which I personally have a problem with. In this case, obviously, what the record exec is doing is totally legal. Totally. And absolutely, yes, it is the responsibility of artists and managers to know the extent and the depths of his or her rights when they license or even purchase beats. And then they should take the very next step of protection. Now, personally, I've never used BeatStars or have I engaged personally in purchasing beats. I did try to sell a few beats in the past, but I realized that's not the best use of my business strategy, so I backed off. And I realized there are many artists who have gone this route and they've built quite a following, despite the fact that several rappers and musicians have used the same beats to grow their own audiences. This is a great advantage to these producers who produced the beat in the first place. But a couple questions come to my mind for EntreMusicians, and these are questions. They're not answers, so I would love to hear your comments. I would love for you to chime in with any answers that you might have. Now, my first question is, how concerned are you personally about copywriting your songs in the new music industry? I know of several musicians who are not in the least bit concerned about copywriting their songs. They say it just simply doesn't matter. Since, however, every song contains at least two copyrightable formats, that's the SR, copyright and sound recording, and the PA, the performing arts copyright, I think that should not the artist at least preserve the dignity of his or her work at the SR level? I mean, this is a question. Now, Trevor Kerrison from the Cleveland, Ohio classical EDM duo Intuitive, who also produces other artists under the moniker DJ Teak, and we had them on the show recently. Well, Trevor does have his grooves on BeatStars, and this is what he had to say about the matter. He says, the artist should have talked to the producer who made the beat and let him know about the hit potential of the song blowing up on social media, and then should have asked for a written agreement that if and when the song ignited, that beat would become exclusive to him, and then he couldn't turn around and sell it, thus creating a win-win situation for both, and that would allow the producer to then renegotiate his position to get paid on the terms of the popularity of the song. I like it. DJ Teak Beat agrees with me that both the producer and the executive, what they did in this case was grimy, right? Although Teak says that the artist should have at least met with the executive to hear him out when he first made the offer. Now, to finalize, the signed agreement was a non-exclusive, which did provide room for the executive to come in and snatch up the rights, thus owning that beat. Now, this, brothers and sisters, is the business of music. So handle your business. Handle it. It's the difference between being a musician and an EntreMusician. Now, if you want to weigh in on the front burner, you can send any topic of music, topical music or about the business, any discussion with your questions or your particular solutions to the EntreMusician at gmail.com. So now back to the topic at hand. Remember, we're talking about the 7 ways to raise your voice. Number 1, the first way an EntreMusician can raise his or her voice is to know yourself. You might have heard this short quote from the ancient Greek philosopher Socrates, who simply said, "Know thyself." Now, there have been some variations of that statement, but for the most part, these 2 words are magnificent grounding for any EntreMusician in life or in their career when embarking on any new project, whatever his or her stage is at their point in their career. Now, this really is step 1, and in many ways, and here are just a few reasons. See, the ability to accurately evaluate yourself, whether or not you are able to do so alone or more often with the aid of a counselor or a pastor or a loved one or someone on your team, you can discover certain attributes which may prove to be hindrances to your moving the needle forward that you may not have known that you have. Some people call these hindrances blind spots. That's what I've heard. And at best, these blind spots impede your progress. At worst, they cause you to crash. Now, my wife Lori and I, we are great at helping each other to see our blind spots. Obviously, not in a mean or malicious way. Oftentimes, it's rather humorous because as we sit there talking with each other, we are able to make the other one see that there's this particular attitude or trait which could limit the other person's potential. And we often, magnify a wonderful trait, conversely, which, helps the other person to see, hey, you've been downplaying that. You really should use that more. And it helps us to soar. It's a process of discovery. Helps us to evaluate our thoughts and our words and our habits, our mindset, and put away the dumb stuff, And we embrace the disciplines that help to raise the quality of our marriage and our lives. This is how Lori and I do it. We've been doing it for 25 years. And it took both of us doing some real work with real humility about ourselves and toward each other. There are many other examples I can cite, but hopefully you get the point. You have to be able to know who you are and get some help if you don't. You have to be truthful and go deep down inside to set the course and direction in the way that you should travel. And as I said, it's not only realizing the tendency toward the negative attitudes or emotions, but also the failure to properly acknowledge your strengths and your giftings as well. So be vulnerable enough to ask someone that you lovingly trust, someone who's going to tell you the hardcore gut level truth. And then you go on this quest of knowing yourself more. And this is true. You got to do it. And here's some questions that you should ask yourself or ask that other person as you discover who you really are. Now, we're not going to take time to unpack each of these. In fact, in the future, I'm going to take a few of these questions and I'm going to do a separate video on them because I believe they are that important to ask. But for right now, I'm going to pose some questions to you and see how you answer these. Here's one. What gives me joy? Here's another. What saddens me? How do I receive praise? How do I respond to criticism? How do I handle rejection? What comes most naturally to me? What are my top 3 challenges? When I think about my life emotionally or mentally, physically, spiritually, financially, are there some challenges there? Am I a people person? Am I a people pleaser? Now, this is a good one. Let's just take a moment and stop on this one because you and I, we are in the people business. EntreMusicians provide an entertainment solution to our followers, to our clients. So for us to gain more attraction to our artistry and business, Excellent people skills are a must, and we must be genuine in our interaction with people, or our insincerity will show through. Conversely, however, if we are people pleasers, then we are highly disingenuous. Firstly, let me say that word correctly, right? And by this, I mean we cannot absolutely change the core, the nucleus of who we are to please people, or we will be changing all the time. No, we must have a center, right? We must have an unshakable grounding, a mindset, an understanding that we operate out of a system of principles and values that don't change on a whim because someone or somebody has requested or demanded this of us. Being a people pleaser is also insincere to the other person in this way, because in your quest to always try to please them, you often wind up overpromising and underserving, because you absolutely cannot keep up with the demands, whatever they are. You just can't do it. It's okay to say, this person is not my person. They are not my family. They're not my tribe. George Clinton put it this way. He said, to each his reach, and if I don't cop, it ain't mine to have. So you have to know who you are, know whose you are, and know why you are. Here's another question to consider before we move on. You have to ask yourself, am I teachable? Am I stuck, or am I willing to learn? Now, there's a lot to unpack here too. We'll wait till a later date to get really into it, but let me say this. If you're the type of person who feels as if you can only learn from a certain people of a certain race or age or economic status, then you need to check yourself. Because the wisest people realize that they can learn from anyone and everyone when they humble themselves and they listen. So that's point number one. And that's priority number one. Know yourself. Number two is the first cousin to number one, and that is you gotta know your business. And we'll begin with this one with confession time for me, right? Incidentally, we just discussed this on the front burner. And that is the fact that for me, it was a stickler because like any other musician, I was concerned first and foremost about the music. It was only about the music. The music is the product. It is the preeminent, dominant. But for me to, or you to, make music the all in and abandon and ignore any semblance of this industry, of the trends, of the technological advances surrounding this trade, for us to throw all of that away, we're making a huge mistake and it's going to wreck us. I'll say it again. It's what separates the musician from the EntreMusician. You have to know your business and you have to know what business you're in. You got to grow it. Now let's just pause here. Again, I'm doing a lot of pausing, I know, but I've asked the question, I've said, you got to know the business that you're in. You may ask, what do you mean? I'm in the music business. Yeah, but what part? Are you a singer-songwriter? Are you a film composer? Are you a teacher? Are you a publisher? Are you in management? Are you a promoter? Are you an engineer or a producer? And yes, I know for EntreMusicians, we have to sometimes be a little bit of all of those things. But what do you specifically excel at? Which one are you most gifted in? Pick one and dig in. You may say, I'm a songwriter. Okay, cool. Well, learn all you can about songwriting, the composition and the construction of a song, the business itself of songwriting, co-writing, copyrights, publishing, all of these things. Know them to pieces. You may say, I'm a producer. Great. Well, immerse yourself in the art of music production. Recording techniques, technology, colors, rhythms, frequencies. Even if you're working out of your own space, get to know other engineers, other producers, and other studios in your area so that you can network and increase your information and your profile. Know who you can collaborate with and network with. You got to know if you're dealing with a label about points and percentages. Rip all this stuff out. Put it back together again. Now, again, I'm not saying that you can't do this and a little of that, and sometimes know about this, but you have to be able to say, this is my business. And you have to know the system of your business, how it functions, know the rules. Even if you're gonna bend or break the rules, you gotta know what the rules are in the first place. You gotta know where the rules are hiding, right? We talked about this before in our previous episode on focus. And in knowing our business, we need to employ these 5 levels: foresight, detailed specificity, insight, reality, and reflection. It all goes into this business of music. Are you willing to take a course? Are you willing to hire a consultant, seek out a mentor, join a mastermind group? Do all you can to improve you and the state of your business. Okay? Know yourself, know your business. Now, the third way to raise your voice is overcoming fear. And let me digress just another half a second. This is personal. This is Jerry. All right, and this might tick 1 or 2 of you off. It's not my heart to do so, but I kind of gotta say what I've observed, all right? So, you want to fast forward, you can. But I've seen and heard the mantra of faith over fear brought back into this conversation due to the present pandemic we're in. And, I've heard the conversation flow, but I've not seen much faith, true faith. I've seen a lot of fear, and I've heard a lot of fear while wearing a mask saying faith. I'm not going to dive deeper into that. I just asked for half a second. But this faith over fear, we got to really know who we are. Now, the novelist Mark Twain says, courage is not the lack of fear. It's the mastery over it. So you just got to do it, whatever you do, in spite of the fear. Each one of us has experienced intense stage fright at one time or another, but yet 2 hours later, what we were doing going, wow, that was the best show that I've ever participated in. And we got to do it despite the fact that our knees were knocking, that our mouth was dry, that our palms were sweaty. And this is why we push ourselves to take a larger bite next time. We up the ante. We push the envelope. We're not comfortable. We make the call. We follow through. Remember, I asked the question, how do you handle rejection? Now, what happens to you if you receive a no after another no, and then a no after that, and another no, along with 1 or 2 insults? How do you handle that? Do you stop? Do you cower in fear? Do you pick yourself back up and brush your teeth and smile through your tears and get back into the battle? That's what's up. That's what we're talking about. See, it's not at all about just the battle. It's about winning the war. And you win because you go back in again and again, each time smarter, tougher, far more courageous, fearless. And I'm telling you right now, there is nothing, there is no opposition, there is nothing that can handle a fearless EntreMusician. Because you might get wounded, you might die, that's the reality, but you die clinging to the sword in your hand. And I know, I've heard this before. This brother is far too serious about this stuff. Yes, I'm right. But this is what it is. This is the life. EntreMusicians overcome fear. And you have to get in there and you have to do your thing. Now, the fourth way that we raise our voices as EntreMusicians is to understand failure. And it was vital that we placed this point right underneath overcoming fear, because one of the greatest components of fear is the fear of failure. Because we all tend to treat failure as if it's personal, and we don't treat it for what it really is. Failure is only an event. It's not you. Yes, it happened. Yes, it was ugly. And yes, you should get someone to wipe that egg off your face. Absolutely. But you, my friend, are not a failure. You are a winner who only fumbled the ball. And let's see, throughout history, all the superstar icons, we just had a Super Bowl. How many times did they fumble the ball? It's called being human. And again, it's about knowing yourself. And if you cannot recover from a major blunder, maybe you should not be an EntreMusician. I mean, heck, if my name wasn't Jerry B, it would be Mr. Cheesy Potato Head Omelet or something like that. I've been that stupid over and over again. And it wasn't until I got a copy of John Maxwell's book, Failing Forward. In fact, I just picked this other one up, a variation, John Maxwell's Sometimes You Win, Sometimes You Learn, right? And it was through those books that I realized I wasn't a failure. I was a leader who failed in that particular moment. John says, fail early, fail often, but always fail early. The great inventor Thomas Edison put it this way. He says, I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. I'm grateful for my position at my church where I serve on our leadership team, and our pastor, Juan Rivera, always reminds us that we have permission to fail. What we don't have permission to do is to not learn from our mistakes. I think that is so wise. We fail and we fail forward. We give ourselves permission to experiment, take huge risks, go big, take these dynamite, outstanding chances. And if we should sprain our shoulders in the process, it's cool. But if we don't learn what twist or turn caused that sprain, then we need to go back and watch the replay. You dig? Again, you got to ask yourself, are you teachable? Can you learn from the mistake? But you do have permission to fail. And another reason that I'm grateful for my church family, for our pastoral leadership team, is for the very next reason, which helps EntreMusicians. The fifth reason to raise your voice, or the fifth way, I should say, to raise your voice. And it's a lesson that we've been learning throughout this current season, and that's teaching us how to pivot. EntreMusicians have to learn how to pivot. It's not the method. It's not the strategy. It's maintaining the mission. Now, you can use any method that you want to get to Phoenix, Arizona, right? You can jog or run or walk or drive. You can take a cab. What was the lady's name? Alita Adams. You can get me by airplane, right? Whatever you got to do, whatever it is, it's not the method. It's the mission. And many artists and musicians often get stuck because they've been trained to think that this is the only way to do it. You know, I've got to do it this way. And then I got to do this. And I got to be just like everybody else out there. You know, they say, my music must be on Spotify or else no one else knows that I exist. Now listen at that statement. It doesn't matter that the streaming services are degrading the artists by paying them mere slices of a penny for their hard-earned work, right? And it doesn't matter that Spotify alone adds approximately 40,000 new songs to their platform every day. But artists swear that this is the way. Well, who said? Remember, I stated earlier that you must know the rules to be able to bend them or break them. Well, here's a chance for you to stomp them into the ground. Be adventurous. Bungee jump your idea. And if it needs tweaked, then go ahead, twist away. Do your thing. Be true to you. Don't fake the funk. And I got plenty more of those 70 slang adjectives and phrases if you like, but you get my drift. I mean, pivot. The only formula is the one that you're creating. Did you hear that? The only formula is the one that you're creating. So Bob Proctor, he often quotes Steve Jobs in saying that you cannot connect the dots going forward. You can only connect them by looking backwards. So, you know, you're walking totally by faith. You're believing that the dots will connect, and they will if you just keep walking. You just do the work. Just do the work for the sake of the work itself. And when you have to tweak. Don't get stuck. If it don't fit, don't force it. There's another way, and then there's another, and then there's another. Try this. Hey, what about that? And before you know it, it's the 137th time that did it. You dig? You know, or like Edison, 10,000th time. Edison said, he says, our greatest weaknesses lies in not giving up. The most certain way to succeed is to always just try one more time. And sometimes it's the smallest adjustment. I mean, I'm not a golfer, but several of my friends are, and they all say the same thing. It's the tiniest twist of the wrist or the hip or the way they bend their knees that makes all the difference. And as a drummer, I can relate to that because it's the way I hold my sticks or play with my fingers or use my toes on the hi-hats. And it's the little nuances that drives the groove. So pivot. Learn to pivot. Number 6, expand your perseverance. Now, I know that sounds cute, but the truth of the matter is this one is probably the most difficult of the 7 because it takes patience to persevere. Somehow we've believed the lie someone told us that it's that one record or that one song, that one performance which changed the trajectory of that singer's career. No, it wasn't. That's a lie. It was day after day after day. It was never giving up. It was always showing up. It was continually getting up, going up, and growing up, song after song, show after show, honing your craft, digging in marathon style. And this includes your life, not just your career. It's a steady flow, not a mad dash. It's the slow cooker, not the microwave. And conversely, even when you're out there and you're going hard and you're doubling down on the grind, remember, it's the balance as well. It's the resting. It's the taking care of your body and your mind and your spirit. Often we're so glued into the one thing that we sacrifice everything in our path. I know what I'm saying may sound paradoxical. I do believe in the mastery of the one thing. But when you're talking about your life, your health, your family, you have to be just as intentional, just as persistent about taking care of home as you do your music. That's healthy. Perseverance is as much about vision as it is about sweat. It's playing offense and defense, right? It's knowing when to stop. It's knowing when to move. It's knowing where. It's chess. It's calculation. So expand your perseverance. Finally, the 7th way to raise your voice is to do so clearly before loudly. I mean, we get it twisted. We concern ourselves with being heard before we focus in on being understood. And before we can be understood, we have to seek first to understand. That's habit 5 of Dr. Stephen Covey's 7 Habits, right? Seek first to understand, then be understood. And that's what's wrong with a lot of the nonsense on social media, right? Everybody's shouting and everybody's screaming their own opinion and their own version of what they feel is right or true or best, right? Without stepping back and taking a healthy, genuine look at the entire 360-degree situation. And once you have done so, and you've given ample consideration of each person's perspective and why they've arrived at the conclusions that they have, and you've earned the right to speak, then you do so with empathy and clarity and understanding. That's the EntreMusician way. Seek first to understand. Now, I know the next question is coming, and I'm going to answer it for you right now. And the answer is, heck no. I confess, I haven't always gotten this one right. No, I've dropped the ball, I've slipped, and I fell on this many times. Like I said, Mr. Cheesy Potato Head, right? But I have learned, and I have grown, and I continue to do so, which is why I share these so very passionately with you, because they do matter. These are elements and attributes and characteristics and principles and values that do matter, because your voice is important and your voice is unique, which is absolutely why we're going to go to those points in future episodes. And we're going to talk to other EntreMusicians who, as I said before, are raising their own voices in some very elaborate ways. Now let's just review and summarize these seven ways to raise your voice. Number 1, again, know yourself. Know your strengths, your challenges, Get someone to help you to ask the right questions and then answer them truthfully. Know your business. Know it all to pieces. Zero in on that one thing which is specific to your best advantage and rip it apart. Number 3, overcome fear. Do whatever it takes. Do it afraid, knees knocking, eyes popping, right? Dry mouth, sweaty palms, but swing. Swing for the fences and aim to win. Number 4, understand failure. That failure is only an event. You are not a failure. You are a winner. You dig it? Pick up the ball. Get back in the game. Number 5, learn to pivot. It's the mission that matters. You can twist and tweak the strategy 100,000 times. Number 6, expand your perseverance. Learn to play offense and defense. Sometimes you got to go hard. Go for it. But you also got to take care of you. Rest. Number 7, speak clearly before you speak loudly. Seek first to understand. Shout if you must, but only after you've earned the right to shout. Only when you can clearly explain your position because you've taken the time to listen to theirs. And these are 7 bona fide ways to raise your voice. And please, my voice is going right now. As I shared on the front end, get involved at the EntreMusician. Come through the backstage pass on the website. Tell everybody you know that you get down with the EntreMusician. Tell 12 people you don't. Help us spread the word. I really, truly, completely appreciate you. I appreciate you. Thank you for letting me into your lives and into your home. We're doing a great work here at the EntreMusician, and you are helping to make that possible. My name is Jerry B. I am the EntreMusician, but you know what, right? So are you. We will see you again next time.